Welcome to The Favorites, presented by DraftKings. The crown is yours. We are an Action Network podcast. I'm Brandon Kravitz, back at it with my super friends, the First Lady of the pod, Kendra Middleton, and the Prime Minister of Degenerate Nation, Stuckey. On today's episode, we've got a special guest joining us to chat about the AFC side of the Super Bowl equation. And then Thursday, we're going to chat Seattle Seahawks. How's everybody feeling this week? Kendra, you pretty locked in on have you taken any calls from the dudes out in Worcestershire or wherever the hell?
Worcestershire? Worcester.
Worcester. Sorry, I was thinking about what I season my steaks with. My bad.
It's okay. I said the same thing. The Massachusetts town names are beyond insane. Did you see the video of the guy screaming at the plow driver that I posted? Is that why you're asking me this?
I mean, I just figured that
There's
it gets crazy this time of year, but what exactly transpired?
there's a video of a guy in a Boston suburb that I posted today and said this is definitely a 98.5 The Sports Hub caller, and he's cussing out the plow driver because he's like, "My car is broken down. You can drive around me. What the is wrong with you?" Like with the heaviest Boston accent ever. And it is just the epitome of this town all the time, but it's heightened in a snowstorm and it is so good. But the callers this week, you can talk about Titletown, but unless you're really in the thick of it here, people do not understand how it is championship or bust every single year here, or like the absolute sky is falling. A team has to win a championship here every single year, or people think that they're oppressed.
Yeah, and they've been getting a lot of them. I mean, between the Red Sox, the Celtics,
It's
the
my fourth in
Patriots.
7 years.
I don't know how the Bruins have been doing lately, but they feel like a team that's usually in the mix. Yeah, it is definitely a fanatical part of the country that you're in right now. It's also going through a snowstorm. I feel like this time of year, like things have really opened up for me in a big way, time wise. All of a sudden, it's like when the sky is dark and gray, and then all of a sudden it clears up. I love being in the thick of the NFL and the NBA, my two sports, but now it feels like I have time again. I feel like a healthier individual. Stuckey, I know that you're getting deep into the college basketball world and you're
And
also a
being
new
a
dad
dad.
and you're a dad. So, but has anything in your schedule cleared up now that we're down to one game and we have nothing but the stupid Pro Bowl this weekend?
Not really. I mean, I still have to catch. I'm so behind on college basketball. I mean, I had pneumonia, and then I had a kid. My wife was dealing with some health issues with the pregnancy before then, so I was staying. In order to stay on top of football, it took all the time that I had, and I was trying to squeeze in college basketball. So and it's so much harder to keep up with. So I'm still trying to catch up on college basketball. Um, this week has spent a lot of time on props. I mean, there's a little more nap time. I'll probably be able to catch a couple more naps this week with no football, but I'm just kind of I'm in one mode from it's all I know how to do. One mode from August until early April, and it's just not sleep, always be looking into something, or watching games, but pretty much all hours and not sleeping. And then once after April, then I'm a completely different person. Um, so yeah, now that there's a couple hours a day I have to fill with, feeding my kid and hanging out with him a little bit.
It is
You're
Um,
important.
initiated. You got pooped on.
yeah, so maybe a little tiny bit, but no, this is still the grind for me until early April. But I love it. But yeah, I do miss multiple football games. Like I'm gonna get the one thing that I always struggle with in the Super Bowl is we're gonna talk about this game for 2 weeks, and you can start to like overthink everything with props and everything. You can convince yourself on so many different things. So I usually just like to target a couple players that I really like from a matchup perspective and go all in there, and then take a couple fun long shots. That's usually how I approach it. Because player props aren't my specialty. But one of the reasons I do love the Super Bowl is because I do get to sweat player props. I don't really bet player props outside of like a couple times a year in the NFL playoffs, college football national championship, and then the Super Bowl. So that I'm not used to sweating them.
It's like collecting candy on Halloween. You know, if that's the
Yeah.
only time of year you eat Halloween, then you'd run around with your pillowcase or your big bucket or whatever and go grab. That's
Yeah,
like
and I mean, I've been betting on sports
Kentucky
every day
on
for
Super Bowl.
20 years, so I'm did like sweating like like the excitement of watching your guy go out on a route and just worry about that, and is he going to get a catch or throw it to him? Just being that guy who roots for that for a game is always fun. So, yeah,
I
I
used to
do
be the
look forward to the
person that would
playoffs.
bet like which would the first catch be from an even number or an odd number. And now that I take sports betting far more seriously and line shopping and all the research that we put into this, modeling and things like that, I can't bring myself to bet those anymore. But I will miss that because, and it's also, I mean, now that with the legalization countrywide, those things were much more offshore, and I'm just not trying to get a giant publisher clearinghouse check from the city of Montreal anymore. So, uh, those days are in the past, and unfortunately, I might just maybe I'll just notate that in on my notepad. Who's going to catch the first pass, odd or even? This UFL. I think that maybe we're thinking about how much we miss football. We might want to consider betting the UFL. Also,
No,
it's Olympics and soccer season. We have Winter Olympics, then we have March Madness, and then
if
we
we
have
miss
the
the
World Cup.
handicapping of football, I'm just saying there's a spring league that we can look at. We've got a lot of content to fill throughout the spring on this podcast. Real quick before we get to Alex, Pro Bowl week. Pretty
Bowl's
pumped
No.
about Shador Sanders making it
No,
in. I was
don't
really
even get
sweating
me
that one
started
out.
on this.
Kendra, please tell me, because I have not seen this anywhere. Please tell me that Trevor Lawrence declined this and wasn't actually overlooked, because that's the story being spit out on social media right now. And I have a hard time believing that the NFL is this stupid.
I have done so much in the weeds research about this and cannot find anywhere on the internet that he was asked and declined. So I know that he was an alternate, but there has been no confirmation of if he declined or was asked or anything. So my tinfoil hat is on. That's all I have to say without getting myself in trouble.
I mean, they just cannot be that obsessed with the idea of gaining social media impressions that they would invite Shador over
I don't know. I
a
think that they
legit
are.
near MVP candidate. Stucky, make it make sense, please.
Wait, I have one
well, I
more
would
thing
just
to
say
say before we get to stuck. People don't understand right now that attention is currency, and that's what Shador provides the Pro Bowl.
Sad.
I mean, it's the Pro Bowl. Who cares? I mean, the Pro Bowl is such a joke now. I mean, I remember loving watching the Pro Bowl growing up. I can't remember the last time I even turned it on. It's like not. It's like touch,
But the
twin
Pro
touch,
Bowl,
right?
nobody's going
It's
to
Puppy
disagree
Bowl
with you. No,
weekend.
nobody is. I would rather watch. I legitimately would rather watch the Puppy Bowl than
Yeah.
watch the
Well,
Pro
yeah,
Bowl.
because the Puppy
But
Bowl is
still,
great.
the games itself are a joke. The invite isn't. The invite should at least be taken seriously.
They need to bring back those games that they used to do with like Brett Favre, and it's like how far can you throw it? And those sometimes are on like ESPN Classic, those throwbacks. You know what I'm talking about? They would have like the mini games.
Like punt, pass, and kick, or am I thinking of kids'
Oh,
games?
love punt, pass, and kick.
Yeah, it would be like who could throw it the furthest, and then you would have like a wide receiver drill. Those were cool. But and then no UFL, no. I football as much as I miss football bet football now, college football specifically is it's like almost year round for me. Prepping spring for me. Like I'm okay not betting on football in the spring. So UFL, no thanks.
It does feel very synthetic to bet football. It was just a
Respect
suggestion.
the Puppy Bowl.
We'll
No, I
see
guess
how
I'm sure there's probably edges there, and people.
I would
I
think
just need a
so.
break. I just need
Not
a
a
break.
lot of modeling, I would think, going on for the UFL. So perhaps we'll check back in April, see where we're at on that. We're about to dive into our Pats preview, but first a word from our very own Kendra Middleton.
The Favorites podcast has teamed up with DraftKings Sportsbook, where new customers can bet $5 and get $300 back in bonus bets if your bet wins. The next great touchdown is coming, and you can bet on it. DraftKings Sportsbook is the best place to bet touchdowns. To get started, use promo code FAVORITES when signing up with DraftKings. Again, use code FAVORITES when signing up and bet $5 to get $300 back in bonus bets if your bet wins. The crown is yours.
The Patriots are back in the Super Bowl for the 12th time in franchise history. Here to help us take a closer look at the New England side of things, Alex Barth from 98.5, the Sports Hub in Boston, the station that birthed Kendra Middleton for us. Alex covers all things Boston sports over at 98.5thesportshub.com. You can throw him a follow as well at Real Alex Barth. Alex, thanks for doing this. You are breaking ground for us, the first interview that we've had as a trio, and you can give us the inside scoop on Kendra Middleton. So I imagine that's a unique experience working with her day to day. Can you tell us something we don't know about Kendra?
Yeah, I don't know. I was going to say, I don't know that there's an inside scoop on Kendra Middleton. I think Kendra Middleton gives you the inside scoop on Kendra Middleton. She's pretty, and it's one of my favorite things about Kendra. She is very upfront and honest, and she tells it like it is. So I'm not sure how much I have that she hasn't already put out there.
Well, yeah, there's not a lot held close to the vest there, so you might be onto something as far as that goes. Now, I joked about this on the Sunday recap show that I just feel so much relief for Patriots fans out there. They had to wait so long to get back to the Super Bowl. What has it been like, in all seriousness? No, like covering a team that was as dynastic as they were for so long, and then temporarily, for a very brief period of time, were totally boring and irrelevant. And now to be back into the Super Bowl with a different grouping, I don't know that we've experienced this much in sports. So from your perspective, what has that been like, the ebbs and flows of a dynasty irrelevance and now into this?
Yeah, it's been wild. And my first year covering the team was 2018. So I like to joke, I got one in just under the wire, and I got to experience covering, it was the tail end, but like Belichick and Brady winning a Super Bowl. And then it looked like it was going to keep going right away. They make the playoffs in 2021 with Mac Jones. That ended up being fool's gold, and they really bottomed out. It was interesting because I'm somebody who is a college football fan. Being in New England, that's not the easiest sell to the market unless it's about the draft for a bad team. So I got to kind of Trojan horse some college football talk in for 2 years doing draft talk, but it really was, you know, people always you hear people say, oh, Boston sports fans don't know how good they have it. And I do think towards the end of the Brady Belichick era, it became more of an expectation than maybe it should have been. Not saying that those guys weren't great, weren't expected to win, but the energy during this run is different than it was even the last couple Super Bowl runs in New England. I think people really gained a true respect for how difficult it is to get to this point, what it takes to get to this point, and having it taken away for 7 long years. I know people are really going to feel for us, has shaped the perspective and really why people are so bought in to this team.
Alex, I'm just going to address the elephant in the room now. We got a shoulder injury that we're keeping an eye on. We, of course, look at things through the scope of the point spread. We all sort of squinted our eyes at the 4.5. Like, is this right? It doesn't feel like the Patriots should be installed as 4.5 point underdogs. But if there's a legitimate injury to the shoulder of Drake Maye, and it's the throwing shoulder, I believe, then the line does make sense. So you tell us, how seriously should we be taking this injury?
Well, the look ahead line was what, 3.5, right? I think I saw.
You're correct.
So
yep.
Moved by a point. Part of the reason I'm running around again, I appreciate you guys being flexible. Mike Vrabel's going to talk here at 11:30, so maybe we'll get more information then. The fact he stiff-armed a linebacker off of him on the final run with that right arm makes me think it can't be, too bad, but it wasn't bad enough that anybody really noticed during the game, clearly. So we'll see. I do think it's late in the year. Everybody's kind of banged up, right? Sam Darnold's been going through that oblique injury for a few weeks now. He was limited in practice, I think, the last 2 playoff games going into those. So if he is banged up, just based on what they've said early, my guess would be it's week 21 and everybody's kind of banged up and it falls in that category. But it'll be interesting to see what Vrabel says today.
Barth, yeah, I gotta know, now that the regular season's ended, the Patriots are going to the Super Bowl. What was the key, do you personally think, to this team's success? Because going into the season, the win total kind of bounced around from 7.5 to 9 or so. Not a lot of expectations on the team, not a lot of big names on the roster. How much of it was just liking one another, or was it something else entirely?
The chemistry is definitely a big part of it, and people will downplay that. And maybe once you get rolling, it's less of a factor. But they overturned over 50% of the roster. That's insane at the NFL level. Usually a big offseason nets you about a 40% turnover. This was more than half. So to get all those new faces bought in, get them familiar with what they were doing schematically as quickly as possible is massive. That's not supposed to happen at the level that it happened as quickly as it happened in New England. I think that's a big part of it. And then just their play in the trenches. And it wasn't always perfect, but it was so much better than last year. And it gave Drake Maye more time to operate. I think it created more opportunities for a secondary that has a ton of talent. That was a big part of the turnaround as well.
So with Drake's injury, should I be looking more at him to throw a turn or throw an interception, or Sam Darnold to throw an interception? Drake's minus 130, Darnold minus 140.
Yeah, I mean, Sam Darnold was pretty turnover prone during the year. Drake has been a little more turnover prone in the playoffs. Now it's been more fumbles than interceptions. So I don't know if there's just a turnover number relative to an interception number, but I don't think this is the game. Somebody asked me yesterday, do the Patriots need to play a perfect game to win? And it's the Super Bowl, so I'm not going to say no, but I don't think either of these teams just stylistically are the kind of team that they're just going to come out and play mistake-free football and grind their way to a win. I think there is going to be a good element of back and forth and kind of teams chasing each other's mistakes in this game.
So both.
So both, yeah.
Okay.
But again, with Maye, it's more the fumbles than the interceptions.
Oh, for sure.
Like
Yeah.
if he has a turnover in this game, I don't know if there's a number on that or just a number you can bet for turnover, but I'm more worried about the fumbles than the interceptions.
And we know that Sam Darnold sees some ghosts when he sees that Patriots logo across from him.
Yeah, and what's
I'm
so exciting is Zach Core has in these playoffs been fantastic, and he put Herbert in a blender, he put CJ Stroud in a blender. There really wasn't an opportunity to put Jarrett Stidham in a blender just with how limited the Broncos offense was, but he has not been afraid to spin the dial and get creative. It's much more than we saw in the regular season. I would expect for him to have something similar for Sam Darnold as well.
Yeah, Alex, thanks for joining us. And speaking of the defense, I want to focus on that side of the ball real quick. Two-part question. The first, much has been made of the schedule, but in reality, we just don't have that many data points of this New England defense against, really good, healthy offenses. So, one of them, the Bills, right? That Bills game when they came back 135-31, the Bills did that basically I think they completed one pass to an outside receiver. So when I look at this New England defense from the outside, when healthy, the run D is legit. Like no one can run on them. The front seven is going to stop the run. Their corner group, legit. Where I think I would attack, and I'm curious to get your thoughts on this, is it the middle of the field? Is it the linebackers in coverage? Is it the young safeties? Like, where are you most worried about this Patriots defense going up against, a full strength offense?
So first of all, good job differentiating the schedule, and they played a lot of tough defenses, but this is really where the easy schedule comes in. You're absolutely right. You look at the quarterbacks they faced, the offenses they faced. It's among the worst. They faced some of the worst offenses in the league pretty regularly. You mentioned that Bills game. Now they were without Robert Spillane, and he has been. It's night and day when he's on the field and when he's not. So when he's not on the field, teams attacked the linebackers, and it worked. They've struggled to cover tight ends this year. They did in the regular season. They've been better in the playoffs, but they haven't really faced an elite tight end so far in this playoffs. They got, I'm blanking on his name in Houston, is a good player, but CJ Stroud kind of took all their pass catchers out of the game with how he was playing in that one. So, yeah, it's throwing to tight ends. It's throwing to running backs. It's trying to isolate the linebackers in coverage, but having Robert Spillane back is a big help. He went down during the AFC Championship. He was back on the sideline in uniform. He came back in, but he's been dealing with a nagging injury, so he's a player maybe to watch in that regard. But if there is a soft spot of the defense, it is probably the middle, but it's a lot less soft than you might think based on the end of the season because, again, they were playing without Robert Spillane.
And then my follow-up is, we're all kind of guessing at this, but the Patriots have really upped their blitz rate, like 40,
Yeah.
45% each of the past 4 weeks. Easier to do against, the Chargers offensive line, Stroud on that offensive line, and then, Stidham. Do you think they keep that, increased blitz rate? And then also, if this was Belichick and his defenses, obviously Vrabel, very familiar with Belichick,
Right.
he wants to take away your strength. So like this would be, we're taking away JSN at all costs,
Yeah.
and other people can beat them. So like, what do you think about the blitz rate and that approach, and what you think the Patriots might do schematically?
So I love how aggressive they've been. This is what I wanted them to be all year, and they really didn't do it until the playoffs. Oddly enough, the only game they came close to it was the first Bills game in Buffalo that they won on Sunday Night Football. Zach Core said last week that it's a game plan thing. It's a matchup thing, and just because the rates are going up doesn't mean that's a permanent change. It's week to week. Darnold has been one of the better quarterbacks against the blitz. He's been solid against the blitz, and like you mentioned, against this offensive line, you got to pressure him. You have to pressure him. Can you get pressure with four? It's something they struggled to do all season. They were kind of surprisingly able to do a little bit against Denver, against that offensive line. So that's encouraging. And maybe that means a little less blitz. But if it's truly a matchup thing, I think you blitz less early. You see if you can get pressure with four. And then if you can't, and this is what they did against Justin Herbert, because Herbert had been good against the blitz this year, then you turn it up. And then you crank it up if you can't get pressure with those four. But that was, like you mentioned, with the much worse offensive line. The JSN thing, I don't know that there's a single better player versus player matchup in this Super Bowl than Christian Gonzalez for Jackson Smith and Jigba. I would think Gonzalez shadows him. Gonzalez doesn't really go in the slot. Jigba hasn't lined up a ton in the traditional slot this year. Maybe that's an adjustment that the Seahawks make to try to hide him from Gonzalez and then do the Patriots move him inside. That's going to be a fascinating matchup. And to me, it's going to be Gonzalez with maybe help to try to take JSN away. Now, you still have to worry about Cooper Kupp. They've obviously got a really good run game, too. Robbie Oots, super underrated pickup, and he's been excellent for them as the fullback, leading the way. It was a two-headed monster. I know now it's just Kenneth Walker, but it is going to be really interesting to see. That matchup's going to go a long way in dictating this game, because if Gonzalez, who has a history of playing at his best against the best corners in the league, when he gets beat, like he gets beat last week by Marvin Mims, he got beat by the Bengals' fourth or fifth receiver in that game in Cincinnati. But I remember his second year, and he only played 4 games as a rookie, he had this gauntlet to start the year where it was like Jamar Chase, Tyreek Hill, DK Metcalf. There were like 5 or 6 weeks where he was playing top 10 receivers every single week, and he was locking the guy down every single week.
Yep.
So he's kind of got a little bit of that thing where he's at his best when the lights are brightest. He's a primetime player. But JSN might be the best receiver in the league right now. Like he's on another level. So can Gonzalez rise to that occasion, or is JSN really going to prove that he is unguardable? Because if Gonzalez can lock him down, it frees the Patriots up to do a lot more and play it 10 on 10 and get more creative on defense and that kind of thing.
Last one for me. I know Kravitz has one more, but Drake Maye's rushing total sitting at 37.5 yards. Obviously, he can take off. Based off of your gut reaction, does this feel too high, too low, just right? He averaged 26, almost 26 and a half in the regular season and 47 rush yards per game in the postseason against really tough defenses. With this shoulder injury, should this get extra attention?
I would even say without the shoulder injury, the Seahawks allowed, were top 5 in rushing yards per carry allowed to opposing quarterbacks. It's something that they've struggled with this year. And, 37 and a half, we've seen him in the playoffs. He's good for like a 25 yard run per game. The shoulder might add to that more. So I think that's about right. The one thing is I have a buddy who keeps getting burned on kneel downs on quarterback rushing totals all playoffs. And he keeps texting me like, why is this the rule? It shouldn't count against rushing yards, whatever. So I always caution people with that when it comes to rushing yards. But no, I do think this is a game, even take the shoulder injury out of it. It makes sense for Drake Maye to be a little more aggressive running the football.
Quick question. A lot of people won't talk about this phase. Well, I guess everyone's going to eventually talk about everything.
Yeah.
But Seahawks elite special teams. People don't talk enough about their special teams. I mean, you go back to the first game against the Rams, punt return flipped that game. They get the 1 seed because of it. Last week, you have the Rams, botch a punt. But the Seahawks all year, their special teams have been great. The Patriots have one of the best punt returners in the league. You have Brennan Schooler, who's always good for a play or two. But Behringer, rough game last week. How much confidence do you have in the Patriots special teams as a whole?
As a whole, I'm confident. Like you mentioned, they've got very good players. I think Jeremy Springer's an excellent special teams coordinator. They've done a good job. They had some issues in kick return coverage earlier in the year. They've been better about that, or they're just sending the ball into the end zone and trusting their defense. Maybe against a guy like Rashid Shaheed, that's what you do. A rough game for Behringer in Denver, no doubt. And you worry about that. That's supposed to be a great place to punt. And he was struggling before the snow came in. So in a game that could turn into a field position battle, you worry about that. But outside of him, they're in good shape. Seattle's special teams are excellent. They still probably have a bit of an edge there, but I don't think the Patriots special teams are much better than the Rams, for instance. I don't think that's an area where they're going to get caught lacking. But, between Shaheed and all that, they do have to be on their A game. Absolutely.
Let's wrap with a quick chat about the tailbacks for the Patriots. What in the world happened to Travion Henderson? This guy was a fantasy stud for me all year. 911 yards, 9 touchdowns during the regular season. A huge drop-off in the playoffs, and now the backfield has gone all the way back to where it was at the beginning of the season with Ramondre Stevenson taking the full load. Is Henderson in the doghouse, and should we be looking the way perhaps at his unders or Ramondre Stevenson overs? How do you view this?
Look, Josh McDaniels has always been hell for fantasy or betting people when it comes to running backs because he mixes and matches and goes off game plans. Henderson was dealing with a shoulder injury last week. He was a full participant of practice, but he was on the injury report all 3 days. So maybe it could be that. I do feel like his field vision too. I thought the second half of the season, he was seeing the field much better, and that was the big difference. That's kind of waned a little bit here in the playoffs. And Ramondre Stevenson, meanwhile, is playing the best football of his career. So part of me wonders if they're just riding with the hot hand, or if 2 weeks Travion Henderson can get healthy, in which case it's all the big plays with him. Even when he's at his best, he's not a guy that's going to consistently give you 4 or 5 yard carries. It's 1 or 2, 20 plus yard carries a game, and that's kind of it. And then the rest of the game, he looks like the guy he's looked like. He just hasn't been able to break off that big run against the Seattle front. That's going to be hard to do. So maybe that makes it more of a Stevenson game to control the ball, control the clock, stay ahead of schedule, get the chunks. But Henderson is one of their best big play threats on offense. And I don't think they're ever going to go away from him entirely, because just the threat he brings of that, one play can change the game. Because he has that ability, you can't take him off the field entirely.
Is part of it they just trust Stevenson so much more in pass protection? Is that
so? Yeah, that's a big part of it too. Henderson, he's one spot he's actually been better, and he had a huge pass block in the wild card game, or the divisional one of them. He came up with a huge block, but yeah, Stevenson is a tremendous pass blocker for running back. And as the offensive line has struggled and they've gone against some of these elite pass rushes, I think that's definitely been part of winging it. But Josh McDaniels also isn't afraid to have his running backs be a tell of what they're calling. The last Super Bowl run they had, I think they ran the ball 70-80% of the time with Sony Michel on the field, something like that. And James White had a wide split too. Now they're not as talented as they were back then. They can't get away with that strong Vittel, but it's not something Josh McDaniels is afraid of.
Yeah, Seattle doesn't blitz a ton either, so you might be able to get away with him on the field more and get him out in space in the passing game.
Love the
callback
to Sony Michel too. I haven't thought about that name in a minute. Alex Barth,
how long it's been.
You cover go and follow all of his coverage. 98.5thesportshub.com. Throw him a follow as well for us at Real Alex Barth. Alex, thanks so much for the time and the insights on the New England Patriots. Enjoy the Super Bowl.
Thanks, guys. You too. Anytime.
Thanks Barthy.
And that'll do it for today's episode. Special thanks to Alex Barth for joining us, our producers, David Payne, Gifford Gould, of course, the 2 stars of the show, Stuckey and Kendra Middleton. The favorites will return on Thursday right here on the Action Network YouTube page when we preview the Seattle Seahawks, the favorites on the favorites. We'll see you next time here on the pod presented by DraftKings. The crown is yours.
Respect the Puppy Bowl.